One of the hallmarks of the last several generations has been an absolute embrace of inauthenticity. Inauthenticity, and in every way. People have become, unfortunately, intellectually curious, spiritually vapid, and in many, many ways have embraced the inauthentic. We've seen this in the form of culture, we've seen this in the form of religion. To use a general term, we've seen the new ageification of traditional forms of thus authentic forms of spirituality. We have seen a coarsening of the culture itself, the social culture, but then also even the so-called arts, where we have gone from the arts being indeed cultural expressions of the spirit of the people to now merely entertainment to make money. We have seen inauthenticity in everything and almost everyone. It's a general statement. Of course, there are individuals, and thank God for this, who have always tried to remain authentic in everything that they are. But generally speaking in society, what we've seen is that society itself has embraced with a gusto the inauthentic, that which is shallow, fake, etc., that which reflects common and current cultural and let's say worldview understandings, etc. And what has this led to? It's led to an absolutely horrific condition, the horrific condition that we find ourselves in today. It has led to a culture in which, and I've spoken about this theme many times, and the reason why I've spoken about it many times is because it is indeed the hallmark of our culture today. We now have a culture of meaninglessness. We now have a culture in which very few people are happy. You know, it's interesting how happiness is not an issue anymore. People talk about how much do you have? People talk about, oh, are your rights being fulfilled politically? Are your sexual rights, your racial rights, these rights, that rights? But no one talks about, well, all right, but are you actually happy? That's not a concern. The reason why it's not a concern is that it is not a concern by design. Those individuals who have created this situation actually know people are not happy, and they couldn't care less. In order to be truly happy, and what happiness means is being truly fulfilled within and in a permanent state, in a transcendent state. What it means to be truly happy is indeed to live a life of authenticity. Of authenticity. Now, why am I choosing to speak about this today? My life, for all of my life, has been dedicated to authenticity. And more, my teaching mission has been one dedicated to authenticity. What authenticity means is that you devote your life to truth, no matter what. No matter what. This is what is meant by authenticity in one's personal life, but also as a movement, and this is something I want to speak about. The International Sanatana Dharma Society has a very fancy name. We are a legal nonprofit. We are a religious nonprofit, 501c3. We are servants of authenticity, and we will not veer from authenticity even 1/10 of a millimeter. No matter what. What is meant by authentic? Several things. And this is something that I want to tell people. I never talk about this. I never talk about the ISDS in depth. For those who have been here for some time, is that the case? Dharmaraja, Mandaleshwari. I'm going to a little bit today. My talks tend to be almost purely philosophical, but I want to talk about this a little bit. Why we are different. Why I am different, the ISDS is different, and everyone who is here who takes this path seriously are different. Several things. First of all, every single thing that we do, without exception, is based upon fidelity to the scriptures. Everything that we say, everything that we believe, every practice that we have. Again, for those who have been to my classes for years, you know that essentially what we do is study the scriptures and then do what the scriptures say. And I have even said things, repeated things again and again philosophically, which then at a certain point we're studying the scriptures, and then we'll come across those verses that confirm exactly what I had been teaching for 10 years previously. Everything that we do is based upon the scriptures. Why is this important as far as authenticity? Well, because this is foundational to what it means to be a spiritual person and a philosophical person. This is what, in very fancy terminology that I've used many times, is called epistemology. That is, how is it that we derive knowledge? You see, it's one thing for some guru to sit on some fancy seat with fancy clothes and claim X is the truth. But if there is someone in that audience who has intelligence and that person says something that seems a bit off, that person needs to ask, what is the epistemological question? Sir, madam, from whence do you derive your knowledge and your authority? You just said X. What are you basing this on? Please show me the scripture. Please quote the individual great sage, recognized sage from the past who made this statement. Or are you just making this up? Is it just your speculation? Are you going to make the claim that, oh yes, well, in meditation yesterday, I came upon this personal revelation that no other sage in history had ever taught before, that's not in any scripture, but I'm going to claim it's true. From whence do you derive your authority? We derive our authority from Shastra, from scripture. Thus, epistemologically, we are authentic. Another thing, we uphold the Guru principle unapologetically. I uphold the Guru principle unapologetically. This is why, when I give my talks, I have to my left our Gurus, and they are there as witnesses, and they are higher than me, even physically. I'm down here, they're up there. Everything that I do is based upon the teachings of all of my gurus, as everything that they did and taught is based upon the teachings of their gurus. Going on, stretching back to Adi Guru, to that first of gurus, who is Sriman Narayana. And we believe in the Guru principle today. For those who were here for Guru Purnima, you remember I gave a talk in which I said that today, in our age of radical egalitarianism, where everyone's attitude is, oh, who are you to tell me anything? We're all equal, we're all the same, I have my truth, you have your truth, etc. To uphold the Guru principle today, in this truly darkened of all ages, most darkened of all ages, is radical. Almost dangerous in a way. Not physically dangerous, but it's kind of a dangerous doctrine, philosophically dangerous. To claim that, well, I, as a spiritual practitioner, actually know nothing. And I have encountered an individual who, due not just to the sharpness of his philosophical acumen, but because of who the individual is within and how that individual manifests that in everything that they do and say, I recognize this individual as an authority, a spiritual authority over me, who I shall listen to, not with blind faith or obedience, with intelligence, but still I recognize that, yes, there are individuals more advanced than me who I should take guidance from. To even make so simple a statement today is radical. But we uphold the Guru principle. Thus, again, we uphold authenticity. Another way in which what we do is radically different from other spiritual organizations, many other spiritual organizations, sadly including even a lot of so-called Vedic organizations or yogic organizations, Hindu organizations, etc. We uphold strict ethics, a strict standard of ethics that we do not veer from, that we do not make excuses for veering from. We believe that we as individuals are called upon as spiritual individuals to be the most ethical beings that we can. That means, without excuse, we uphold the principles that we believe in. And those principles that we believe in, again, are based in the scripture. The yamas and niyamas, the philosophical, ethical strictures that Krishna himself speaks about all throughout the Bhagavad Gita, and hundreds of other references throughout the scriptures, where we are told what it means to be an ethical person. What it means to be an ethical person is, generally speaking, again, this theme, we are authentic. But more, what does that mean? It means that we go out of our way to not harm ourselves or others. It means we go out of our way to, in fact, help ourselves and others, and to do that in the deepest, most meaningful way imaginable. At a very bare minimum, this is what it means to be an ethical person. But then we have certain principles that we follow. We avoid lying, we avoid stealing, we avoid harming other individuals without cause, etc., etc. It means we uphold certain personal ethical principles. And I'm very strict about this, I always have been. If we are yogis, if we are serious yogis, not just in word, but in actuality, in our lives, that is, trying to incorporate Dharma in our lives in every way imaginable, what does this mean? It means we don't drink alcohol. It means we don't smoke cigarettes. It means certainly we don't take drugs. And I can go on and on. It means that we have sexual fidelity, etc. It means we don't sleep around. We're not part of the sleeping around, just having sex with anyone kind of culture. We don't care about the culture. Because is our path fad dharma or Sanatana Dharma? Sanatana Dharma. That means cultures come and go. You see, anyone who has studied history knows that sometimes cultures are very libertine, where anything goes. Sometimes cultures are very strict, sometimes a combination of both. And the culture waxes and wanes. It comes and goes, it changes all the time. What it means to be authentic is we do not care, and we don't give in to the culture. It means that what we are following is Sanatana, eternal. While the rest of the culture goes up and down and changes all around and does all sorts of crazy things, we are a mountain who was always there and will always be there. Mount Everest. Is Mount Everest a fad? Or has it been there for hundreds of thousands of years? And will it be there for hundreds of thousands of years? What it means to be a dharmi is we are Himalaya. We are like a mountain that does not alter, that does not change. Thus, we maintain our principles at any cost and without excuse. The other way in which we are authentic is that we believe in following the Vedic path. Now that sounds kind of self-explanatory and very simple. But what I mean by this is that we are not radical universalists. Again, this is a very modern concept. For those individuals who don't know, I wrote a book called Radical Universalism. The book and the previous article that the book was based upon have been read by several million people at this point, and it caused a revolution within Hinduism in the beginning in the mid-2000s. I could be wrong, but I believe I wrote this article initially around 2003, 2002. And as an article, it was a very long 40-page article. It was read by quite literally millions of people, and then we made it into a book, and it's been read by more people since then. The basis of the book is this, that the modern New Age notion that all religions are the same was never taught by any religion upon the face of the earth previous to approximately 1830. This is a very, very modern concept. And unfortunately, the religion that has been infected by this doctrine more than any other religion upon the face of the earth, unfortunately, is, and we have to be very technical here, Hinduism. If you go to any Hindu, especially, and you ask them, so what is one of your core beliefs? Very sadly, one of the first things that they will tell you is, well, one thing that we believe is that all religions are the same, and it doesn't matter what you practice, just as long as you're sincere, our goal, the goal of all people, is to get to the top of the mountain, and it doesn't matter which path you take to get to the top of that mountain, as long as you get there. Oh yes, some of the paths might be a little bit more scenic, some might be more direct. But as long as we all get to the top of the mountain, that's all that matters. Interestingly, again, as a person with a PhD in religious studies who has studied this, I know exactly when this idea was formulated and when it began to infect Hinduism, very specifically. This idea did not exist within the Vedic context previous to 1830. Did not exist. It was brought to India first by Unitarian missionaries, and then such organizations as the Brahmo Samaj spread this idea, and now it's become foundational to mainstream Hinduism. This is what I pointed out in my book, Radical Universalism, however. Yes, nice analogy. Yes, we're all trying to get to the top of the mountain. There are many different paths to get to the top of that mountain. However, this is the mistake that's made. There are different mountains. What's at the top of that one specific mountain that the claim is made by the Radical Universalist? Oh, we all want to get to the top of that one mountain. Really? And what is at the top of that one mountain? Oh, it is the conception of the Radical Universalist. See, if you speak to the Radical Universalist, which what they don't understand is Radical Universalism, that is this idea that all religions are the same, has itself become a dogma. If you ask any of them, oh, well, what's at the top of the mountain? They'll give you one of two answers. They'll say, oh, well, it's just the divine in the most impersonal and universalistic of senses, which makes it nothing, because there's no specificity that's there. And as anyone who is a truly spiritual and philosophical person, we want specificity. We don't want vague answers. We don't want a vague God. I know I don't want a vague God. I want to know God intimately. So that's one thing that the Radical Universalists will claim is at the top of their mountain, or even worse. Well, what is at the top of this mountain? Oh, anything you want it to be. Thus, again, nothingness. Because then, when you get to the top of the mountain, really, you're alone at the top of the mountain. Someone else who has their own conception, they're living in their own mentally constructed fantasy of what's at the top of the mountain. You see where this is leading to. Anyone who with any philosophical acumen can understand the silliness of this. But what I've pointed out is, well, the mountain that you're talking about, so many paths getting to the top of, that's a specific mountain that you're attracted to as a Radical Universalist. And what's at the top of that mountain ultimately is nothing. You see, the Buddhists have their mountain. And what's at the top of their mountain? Shunyata, nothingness. And the Abrahamists want to get to the top of their mountain. And what's at the top of their mountain? A very angry man with a beard. And on and on. So in actuality, the truth of the matter is, it is not many paths to the top of one mountain. It is many mountains, all of which are distinct and have nothing to do with each other, because the goals are all different and the conceptions of what is that absolute are all different, even to the point of the Buddhists, in which the absolute is nothingness. See, we're not seeking nothingness as followers of Sanatana Dharma. We're not seeking an old man with a big beard who's angry all the time. We're not seeking, and you can go on and on. We are seeking Anandam. We are seeking that being who is the source of all bliss and all goodness and all wonder. That's what we're seeking. Thus, we make what is today, unfortunately, sadly, interestingly, crazily, the bold claim, which again, previous to around 1830, every religion believed, every authentic religion, would make this claim that I'm about to say, and yet today this is considered radical. All religions are not the same. The goals of all religions are not the same. Thus, our practice of Sanatana Dharma is one, again, of authenticity in which we practice Sanatana Dharma. We understand that to mix it with anything else, to say, oh yes, I like Sanatana Dharma, that's an interesting statement. I like Sanatana Dharma. It's a cool path. Yeah, it has some nice things in it. But I also kind of practice Buddhism, and I also kind of practice neo-paganism, and I also kind of practice this and that and the other thing. That's an individual who is, by definition, inauthentic because they are not focused. What it means to be authentic is to embrace. Think about this. Anything we claim that we want that is of value. We want truth. When truth presents itself to you, do you kind of shake its hand and say, oh yeah, nice to meet you, but don't get too close, or do you embrace it with all of your being? An authentic sage comes to you. Do you go to that person and say, oh, hey, yeah, oh, great to meet you, an authentic sage, an individual who quite literally is living in transcendence with every fiber of your being? I'd like to pick your brain. Or do you embrace that person and surrender to them? You encounter God. And when you encounter God, do you simply say, oh, God, it's so wonderful to meet you. Listen, why did you make me fall off my swing when I was 5 years old and break my knee? Do you start asking silly questions that pertain only to your own bitterness? Or, quite possibly without even saying a word, with tears flowing from your eyes and falling onto the ground, do you simply fall at God's feet and say, I surrender unto you with all of my being. Please reveal yourself to me if it is your will. Do you embrace? So, this is the authentic approach to spirituality versus the modern radical universalistic New Age approach. Truth is for us not just, something interesting and cool to do in my spare time, most especially while others are watching, i.e. on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and etc., etc. Spirituality for us is not that. Spirituality for us is a full embrace. It is a full embrace in which, when we embrace truth, everything that is untruth disappears before us, fades away into the nothingness from whence it came. This is how we practice truth. This is what it means actually to encounter God. When we encounter God, anything that is the opposite of what is real very quickly fades away into nothingness, literally recedes before us, and all that is there is God. And eternally so. We find ourselves at that point in a zone of eternality, in which we are experiencing our connection with a being which we know at that moment really has always been there. Despite the fact that we, throughout much of our sojourn in this world, have forgotten that connection, the immediate thing that we experience is, actually, I've always been connected with this being. How could I have forgotten? And we know that that connection is unbreakable. This is why we seek such things, even materially speaking, in this world. This is why we seek relationships. This is why we seek wealth. This is why we seek anything that we think is of value. We're trying, in a way, to replicate the real with the unreal. We think that, if I have a lot of money, somehow I'll be able to experience that ecstatic continuity that I know I should be experiencing, but for some strange reason I'm not. If I can establish a relationship with a guy, with a woman, with somebody, I will reestablish that ecstatic continuity that I know is at the center of my being, that once in a while I touch, but I don't quite know what it is, but I know that really that's what I want. But how do I achieve that? Let me try a relationship. Let me try sex. Let me try money. Let me try possessions. Let me try fame. Adulation. It gives me such a great feeling. But of course, all of it falls short. All of it. Because all of it is inauthentic. All of it is unreal. So, I can go on about this, about the nature of authenticity for quite some time. But let me just say this. What I teach, what I live, what I always have taught all throughout the totality of this lifetime has been authenticity. The International Sanatana Dharma Society is a movement that exists in order to practice authenticity and deliver authenticity to others. The individuals who, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, find themselves attracted to my teachings and the International Sanatana Dharma Society are, too, likewise, individuals who find themselves drawn to authenticity. So this is what we are about. This is what the ISDS is. This is what I am. This is what the actual path of Sanatana Dharma is. One of radical and unapologetic and uncompromising authenticity. We wish to be beings who fully embrace that which is real, that which is true, and for whom anything that is contrary to that does not even exist. In anything that we are and in anything that we do. So that's my challenge to everyone who is here in this room, anyone who is watching this video right now, is if you want authenticity in the way I've just described, both philosophical authenticity, but more to live a truly authentic life such that anything else going around you today, anything else going on around you today, anything else happening in the culture that you know in your heart is inauthentic, will essentially cease to exist. Then this is the movement. This is the path that will help you to achieve that authenticity in every way, bar none. Good. Jaya Sriman Narayana.
Jai Sriman Narayana.